My wife and I just got back from an amazing trip to Hawaii. It's been 7.5 years since our honeymoon, and we promised ourselves we'd go back, and it was fantastic. Hey everyone, I'm Joel with Berkshire Hathaway, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Driving Triad, where we talk about everything lifestyle, golf, and real estate here in the Triad of North Carolina. My wife and I just got back from a great trip to Hawaii, did so many amazing things. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the food. Especially when we were in Kauai, there was a ton of food trucks, open air dining, things like that, because hey, it's 60 to 80 degrees almost every single day. Why not go ahead and enjoy the outdoors? A lot of the restaurants just have the doors wide open, outdoor air just mixing through there. It's a fantastic way to enjoy it. Just a little bit different than here. You know, obviously in the wintertime, we're down in the 30s and 20s at times. So we need to be enclosed, have that HVAC running all the time. I actually think I've got a picture in here somewhere from a AC unit I took while we were on the Big Island up in Kona. And that AC unit was almost completely rusted away due to the salt water in the ocean air. And then Kahlua pork was something I stumbled upon. It's fantastic. Now I can't go ahead and move on from the food before I mention shave ice. You know, here for dessert, you're gonna go out for cakes, pies, ice cream, of course. But there in Hawaii, at least when we're there, my wife is obsessed with it. Shave ice, not shaved ice. I made that mistake. Don't do that. Lots of great places to go to, but just super, super thinly shaved ice right into a cup, put on top of some sort of ice cream. Macadamia nut is the way to go. Trust me on that one. And then all the different syrups that you might want on top of that. It's a really light dessert, but fantastic. We were there pretty much every single day. One of the things that we were just absolutely fascinated by was all the marine wildlife. Obviously, I think we were there at a good time of year. It's sort of getting towards the end of whale watching season, but we took a kayak out on our own one day. We're going down just on Kona, and we had this pod of dolphins. They're spinner dolphins. They're only about 6 feet long, but they're super social. And they were circling right around our kayak, getting to the point where we probably, if we really would have wanted to and tried to get a little bit closer to them, we almost could have touched them. It was really, really neat. Also, we stayed at the Outrigger Resort there in Kona. They had a manta ray tour you could do at night, where they had all these super bright LED lights they'd put down into the water. It attracted all this different phytoplankton that would come up, and that's what the manta rays feed on. And I had no idea these things were so big, but the biggest ones they have, you know, tip to tip, it's about 16 feet and they weigh about 1,500 pounds. And then the last thing we did when we were on the island of Oahu, my wife found this shark encounter. Hawaiian shark encounters, I believe is what it was. And so we went out on the boat, they dropped the cage in the water, chummed the water a little bit, and then we got to jump in the cage and have all the sharks swimming right around us. You know, you got your snorkel gear on and that, so you can go underneath the water and sort of interact with them. And they were Galapagos sharks, so not super aggressive or anything like that. They would bump the cage, kind of curious to see what you're doing. Another thing that I thought was really neat while we were there was the number of different climates you had, even from island to island, but even within one island. Say that you go to Kauai, within the interior of their island there, it's one of the rainiest places on the entire planet. They get about 500 inches of rain per year. And then you go to the north end of the island and you've got, and that's, I mean, we're talking less than an hour drive, and you're in a desert climate. That was pretty interesting that you could have 500 inches of rain to less than 10 inches of rain annually and be less than an hour apart. Same thing on the Big Island. When we first got there, we stayed in Hilo because we wanted to go to Volcanoes National Park. Incredible experience there. You know, the volcanoes were not actively erupting when we were there, but we got to walk through the craters and everything like that. We started off at our hotel, it was 80 degrees, 45-minute drive. By the time we got to the top there, I think it was about 50. And if you wanted to keep going up to Mauna Kea, it's about 14,000 feet up there, and there's snow there year round. A really neat place to go check out. Volcanoes National Park, it sort of felt like you're going through a post-apocalyptic world. You're going through there, there's nothing really growing in there. It's where lava had flown. I mean, it's just all rock. Really neat though. A great little hike. My wife said it was gonna be an easy day. Easy day for her was, I think, 15,000 steps by 10 o'clock in the morning. So guys, if you go with your wife, make sure you check that out beforehand. So let's talk about vibe, island to island, and also just Hawaii in general, right? Hawaii as a whole is going to be very much more laid back than you're going to see here typically. And we also say, hey, we're a little bit slower here in the southern part of the United States. They are on island time, and that is a completely different thing. You go to some of the stores there in Kauai, it's like, we open at 10, maybe sometimes at 11, and maybe other times we'll just be closed because of big surf or because we don't want to work. And you don't know if they're going to be open or not. But as a whole, Kauai was our favorite island because it's much more about the outdoors, hiking, snorkeling, swimming. You get to take a tube through some of the irrigation aquifers and ducts through the mountains there in Kauai. That was really neat to do. Kona and the Big Island. Kona is a much more touristy resort site, and then if you get to the south end of the island on Hilo, it seems to be more of the local stay. So if you go down to Waikiki, that's a little bit, it's the biggest part of the city there. It feels almost sort of like a Miami Beach or something like that. High rises, condo living, apartments, things like that. We actually got to go check out Pearl Harbor. I think that's one of the things that if you go, you should definitely check out. It was a very somber experience, but something that I'm very glad that we did, just to get that appreciation for what happened there. Just to see it in person and to go through that tour, it just really makes you appreciate everything that you do have, and the fact that so many people lost their lives there in such a short period of time. We would not be here today without them and without their sacrifice. So I told you we were going to talk about real estate here, at least quickly. On the Big Island and on Kauai, pretty much everything that we could tell was that it was all single family homes, small lots, generally pretty modest size homes. You definitely had some big mansions out there in spots with just some expansive views. But I would say from what we could see, on the lower end, you're looking at $700,000 or $800,000 for about 1,000 square foot home. And then on the upper end, we got some of those bigger homes with the big scenic views of the Nepali coast and things like that. You've got the ocean in the background, you've got the mountains as well as the valleys, everything else. You could be spending $18, $20 million and or more. So very, very expensive place to be. Waikiki in Oahu was one of the only places that we saw the high-rise buildings. So your condos and townhomes and things like that. But you're paying for the scenery, you're paying for all the different experiences. I can't remember a place that we didn't just crest a hill and I just look at my wife and say, man, that's beautiful. Bring plenty of sunscreen though. Got pretty toasted. But I would highly encourage you to go check it out if you have the chance to do so. Even if you're not a beach person, I definitely don't consider myself a beach person at all. I'm super pale. I get burned very, very easily, but I do enjoy going out on the water anyway. So if you have the opportunity, get out there to Hawaii, you won't regret it.